Good morning, everyone. All our distinguished guests are have now arrived. So I'd ask people to take their seats so we can commence.
This.
You want me to speak? Yes, can you hear me? Yes, you can hear me. Okay. They're checking with the secretary. We'll go ahead with Dr. Mather. When secretary's here, he'll join. Yeah. Of course, reserved a seat for you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time today. Well, good afternoon, good evening, I guess, for those of you who are joining from the live stream. I'm Alex Hogeveen-Rutter with the International Solar Alliance, and we are so delighted to have so many distinguished guests today And we are so excited about this opportunity to discuss international collaboration on building resilient solar supply chains. And with that, I'll hand it off to my boss, Dr. Ajay Mathur, to deliver the opening remarks.
Alex, thanks. But many thanks to all of you for making the change happen. Over the past year, we have focused, I think it was in Pittsburgh, that we have focused on how can we diversify the geographically diversify the supply chain. By far and large, we have a good idea. You can move from solar cells to solar modules in almost any part of the world as long as the demand is there, as long as the transport from the manufacturing sites to the user sites is there. Solar cells is a different ball game altogether. And being competitive in solar cells makes it necessary for governments which want to set up solar cell activities to be able to provide incentives for the players that come in. What I hope is that as we move ahead, we focus on the kind of problems that the concentration of manufacturing leads to today, the supply chain bottlenecks, which have led in the past year to various parts of the world not getting a supply of solar cells or solar panels for several months in a row. And at the same time, when the gas from was not available because of the Ukraine war. So here you had a situation where neither gas was available nor solar panels were available. I don't think we want this kind of situation again. We need to geographically diversify our supply chains so that there is a greater degree of resilience in these. It's a great delight to have all of you here, and I look forward to hearing all of you and seeing how we move ahead. As I've told Jean Francois, I not only want to do this, I also want to see what we can do together in the future. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mathur. I'd now like to invite our partners and co-coordinators, Arena, Ms. Gauri Singh, Deputy Director of Arena, to give her remarks.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you so much for inviting me here. I think it's a pleasure just to be here and to be talking about something that's so critical. And both Dr. Mathur and I are just coming out from a roundtable that one of the things that's been flagged over and over again, and I don't need to tell all of you, is about the criticality of the supply chains and the industry actually feeling the crunch because when they say they have the technology, but if the supply chains are not in order or they're getting creaky or they're getting overstretched, then it's clearly an issue that needs to be handled well. And now that we have seen 118 countries come up and sign on to the tripling of renewables pledge, then what we are looking for is a huge step change. So it's not even just carrying on the way that we were doing and hoping to be able to reach there, because what it will require in terms of scale ups will need completely new rethink and new think on how the supply chains have to be managed, and they we cannot go on doing what we have been doing now. So we all know that markets vary in terms of the labor costs, the capital costs, and also the economic scale that's required for manufacturing. And while there might be an intention in many countries and markets to be a part of the supply chain for the emerging technologies, but easier said than done, because you need a large enough domestic market to be present, to be able to establish the foundation. Then that's something that can then be also serving many other markets and serve as a hub. But unless you have that, I think you know we've moved from megawatt scale to gigawatt scale in terms of manufacturing. And the gigawatt scale is what's going to remain. So it's something that I guess all the investors in the manufacturing space are thinking about. But at the same time, there is this constraint about not getting over concentrated in a few countries, because supply chains don't work like that, or at least they don't provide the energy security that's needed. So I hope this discussion today will also provide insights for us as we do this work together with ISA in the SEM work stream on the global supply chains and solar. And I wish all of us a very nice discussion. Thank you.
Um, Thank you so much, Gari. We're going to have you hold on just a minute, Jean-Francois. We've got Secretary Bala. Unfortunately, the Indian delegation was not able to make it here, but we'll have Secretary Bala join online. So, Mr. Bala, if you can hear me, please deliver your remarks.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Sorry, if you kindly thank you for bearing with us for the connection, which is we are having some issue currently, but let me try to give our remarks by audio, if you can bear with me for that also. First of all, let me thank the from the program that Dr. Mathur has given me. I believe Mr. David Turk, Deputy Secretary of Energy, is present at the venue. I also see our friend, of course, Dr. Ajay Mathur. We just heard him. Ms. Gauri Singh from IRENA, we just heard. And I'm not sure who all are present there, but I welcome all the dignitaries who are present there, all the participants. Thank you so much. First of all, let me also thank the ISA, the Clean Energy Ministerial, and IRENA for the partnership and coordination of this event on transforming solar supply chains. I would like to especially thank our members of ISA, the United States of America, Australia, Germany, Brazil, and the UAE for participating in this event. India and its friends around the world must continue to collaborate on building resilient global solar supply chains. We have a tremendous requirement for this supply chain, which is important for all of us. Up to 1900 gigawatt of solar manufacturing by 2030 is what we anticipate is the need, and which will create opportunity for several new entrants. India is already trying to become a significant player, and we hope to become a large producer in the next couple of years. We hope to increase our solar manufacturing to 100 gigawatts per annum by 2026. In time, we also hope to become a technology leader, and our companies can support the development of manufacturing in the least developed countries, particularly in Latin America and Africa. Indian cell manufacturers, for example, can set up module manufacturing also in not only in India, but also elsewhere too. Indian companies, which are front runners in manufacturing now, is Waaree and Renew. I believe they are participating in this event and play a crucial role, not just in India's solar supply, but also in becoming a supplier for several other countries, including the United States and Europe, and improving the supply chain resiliency. I believe there's some policy briefs which will be presented. I have been given to understand that some points which are there in that policy suggestions have also already been implemented by India. Let me just mention a few. For example, demand side creation. We are committed to increasing our capacity. We already have a target of achieving 500 gigawatt renewable energy capacity by 2030, and which we cannot frankly hope to achieve unless we are self-resilient in supply chain. And therefore, this is something that we would like to do, but we are committed to increasing our RE capacity. In fact, we would like to triple the RE capacity by 2030. We have shown leadership, for example, with IRDA, one of our companies, the NBFC, the non-banking finance company, is part of our ministry, which helps finance solar manufacturers across India. We also have companies like Power Finance Corporation and the Rural Electricity REC, which are also financing projects in India, and of course, manufacturing as well. It is crucial for other countries to set up similar institutions, which would be helpful. And where not possible, for example, in Africa, it's important for multilateral institutions to provide support to manufacturing capacities. Thirdly, we do encourage and support the, we provide a lot of support to our manufacturers. We have a production linked incentive program for the solar manufacturing, which is directly supporting nearly 50 gigawatts of manufacturing capacity, which includes about 25 gigawatts of fully integrated manufacturing capacity from polysilicon to modules. In fact, we are expecting much larger integrated capacities to come up. And these capacities are likely to come up by 2026. Fourthly, technology transfer. I think it's very important in resilience. And Indian companies have also shown leadership in this space. For example, Reliance has, one of the PLI beneficiaries, Reliance has acquired a company which is a technology provider. And similarly, recently we've just approved the largest megawatt wind turbine, 5.2 megawatt, which is now being manufactured in India. And therefore, technology is becoming increasingly something that we support, and we hope to, not only assist India in reaching the manufacturing capacity and RE capacities, but also help other countries as well. In fact, greater collaboration is possible between our educational institutions and research institutions and foreign institutions. I think that is what is going to be. The Indian solutions are now, we understand, are world class, and that's what the new capacities which are being added are the latest technology, and they meet the IEC, UL, and BIS standards. We also have a green open access policy, which allows our manufacturers to source renewable energy for their manufacturing operations. This will help make Indian manufacturing among the lowest carbon content in the world. India also has high social and environmental standards, which makes Indian modules a preferred choice. It is crucial not to put up, we feel that trade, a free and fair trade in solar and other manufacturing is important for all countries to happen. But of course, the standards must be aligned. The International Solar Alliance is showing leadership with the STAR-C initiative. This will help emerging countries test and qualify products to ensure the highest quality standards and minimize their effects. It is important for developed countries to continue to fund and support testing and quality standards in emerging markets to help ensure fair energy access for all. India is very supportive of building this resilient global supply chains and is looking forward to becoming a key partner to countries around the world. Thank you so much for hearing me out.
Thank you so much, Minister Bala. It's unfortunate you weren't able to make it in person, but we're very glad to have your remarks. And there were lots of people nodding along, especially when you're talking about the opportunities for international collaboration and technology transfer and financing and people I think are excited about all this this capacity coming up in India. So with that, hopefully one person who's excited about module capacity in India is Deputy Secretary David Turk. I'd like to invite to give his keynote remarks.
All right. Well, let me just do a few things here. And first of all, just some thanks. I want to thank certainly our ISA colleagues. Thanks, Alex, for the introduction and convening, and a particular thanks to a friend who's probably a friend of many folks in the room and paying attention online. That's Ajay Mathur. I was trying to think of the way to describe Ajay, who I've had a chance to know at least for 3 or 4 jobs. I'd like to say we both had hair when we met many years ago, Ajay, but I'm not sure that was the case maybe for either of us. But if you look at Ajay's career, both in the Indian government, including heading up the Bureau of Energy Efficiency and doing some remarkable work with LEDs and other efficiency, real world impact for the betterment of the lives of a lot of Indian colleagues, Indian friends, but also his time at TERI, his time at ISA. I'm not sure there's too many individuals around the world who've had such an impact on real world reductions of greenhouse gases than you've had, Ajay. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your dedication as well. Uh, Particular thanks. Should we give him a round of applause? Also like to thank JF. I think he was supposed to speak before me, but now he's speaking after me. That's all fair. JF and I were colleagues at IEA, and it's particularly, I just have to say, such an honor to see him leading the SEM, leading the Clean Energy Ministerial, for those who've had a chance to work in the Clean Energy Ministerial, as I've had for many, many years. Now, the SEM is such a powerful, and Ajay had a chance to work with the SEM quite a bit as well, such a powerful concept that we need to get the full potential out of. And I know that's your task, JF, as the head of the SEM Secretariat. It's 29 countries now, 90% of installed renewables capacity. That's a pretty efficient package of countries all working collaboratively together to really try to advance the cause, not only for those 29 countries, but for all the people of the world. So thanks, JF, for taking on this new responsibility in your life. And then from one former, I guess I'm now a deputy, I was deputy of the IEA as well, to another deputy director general, Singh for IRENA, just such a powerful organization and a powerful force for good. So thank you for all that you're doing as well. So thanks to all of our three co-sponsors. Second thing I wanted to do is just take a step back and appreciate how far we've come along in our solar journey. Right, I'm old enough to remember when solar was concerns about, oh, it's too costly, is it going to work, et cetera, et cetera. Those days are long past. I remember a time at the International Energy Agency when I was there, when our old boss, JF Fatih, came to me and said, one of the key takeaways we're going to have, and I don't know if it was a WEO report or some other report, was that solar is king. And solar is king. You look at the numbers, you look at the increases, it is king. One nugget just to put out there is I saw another IEA analysis recently that said that solar installed capacity, PV capacity around the world, will actually go beyond coal in 2027. That is just remarkable, the amount of scale that we've had. Again, thanks to the International Solar Alliance and a lot of others working day in and day out. We've got colleagues here not only from India, but from Australia. Australia's solar journey has just been phenomenal. I don't know how much percent you're getting. What is the percent these days that you're getting from solar in Australia? 35% overall. And your solar PV rooftop is pretty impressive. Really? Is it the highest in the world? All right. So Australia has the highest in the world, definitively. No question. No questions about it. But there's three things I think we need to focus on when it comes to solar. One is we need to keep the momentum. Just because you have momentum doesn't mean you're going to have momentum. We need solar to do even more work. If it's king, it also needs to continue its reign and only increase its reign going forward. Secondly, the benefits of solar are not evenly distributed around the world. And that's a big reason why the ISA was conceived of, and what Ajay works day in and day out. One nugget there, which is kind of depressing, but shows the potential for opportunity, is right now, any given day, added up over a year, 60% of the solar radiation that falls on planet Earth and the land part of planet Earth falls in Africa. But right now, the installed PV capacity in Africa, does anyone want to take a guess of what that is? Some people may have seen this statistic before. 60% of the resource, right now it's 1%. 1% of global installed PV capacity is in Africa. That's just not good enough. And you think of a continent that could benefit from solar PV, all that it can provide in terms of education, in terms of economic opportunities, So we've got a lot of work to do to make sure solar benefits the rest of the world. And then the third piece, which is the focus of this terrific panel coming up, and I'm going to keep this short from my end just so we can get to the panel, is to have the resilient, the diverse, the rapidly increasing supply chains. That is a challenge. That is a benefit to all of us around the world if we do that. Certainly in the U.S., with the historic legislation with President Biden and Vice President Harris and their leadership, we've now seen 98 domestic manufacturing facilities announce and start coming online. $15 billion of investment on the private sector side, 30,000 jobs. Those are big numbers. That's a huge impact. But this is such a, because solar is king, this is such a big market and such a growing market. Certainly from the US perspective, there is a huge opportunity for a number of companies, countries to step up, to make a bunch of money. I know there's a prominent solar PV manufacturer here in India and several others probably as well. Building it out in India, building it out in the US, building those diverse supply chains around the world. It's good for business, it's good for our countries, it's good for the world as a whole to have that. So that's why it's exciting to have initiatives like the SEM Transforming Solar Supply Chains initiative, so we can work together, so we can build out this resilient supply chain going forward. But thanks to everybody. Thanks for all your efforts here.
Thanks you so much for those candid remarks, and yes, we'll do our best to fulfill that vision. I'd now like to invite our final opening speaker, Jean-François Gagnon, head of the CEM Secretariat, which is the Transforming Solar Supply Chains workstream is under the aegis of CEM. So please.
Thank you, Alex. And I think I'm going to regret having come after you, Dave, because I think the task you've set aside, both, as also the SEM kind of thought leader, this is a very great opportunity and a great honor to be able to continue on the mission you set us forward. So very useful. I really want to give our thanks to both the US and ISA just to be able to organize this gathering and getting us here. It's incredible. And also specifically the knowledge partners, IRENA and ISA, in terms of helping shape where things are going. Congratulations to our SEM lead on this, Australia and the US, in terms of advancing the work of the initiative over its 1 year. And this is a 1 year anniversary almost on the day. It was started at a great GCF in Pittsburgh. And also the other countries who are participating, Germany, UAE, India, and Brazil. Now, I guess one of the key things we could ask ourselves on a 1 year anniversary is, what have we accomplished to date, right? And it shouldn't be underestimated what the work that has been done in that year, because what I can see has happened is we've built the coalition of the who needs to be at this table, and we've agreed on what is it that we need to do. And I think this battle here is a perfect example of the who. We have very senior political backup in terms of getting the momentum and making sure the resources are there. We have cross-government participation, energy ministries, trade ministries, commerce ministries, to be able to make sure that we address all the issues. We have the private sector to make sure that governments don't work in isolation and that the two sides understand each other. And basically, what that gives us is the breadth of knowledge to be able to define what is the clear issue. And the issue has been set up already by the speakers before me. We know solar is one of the most useful tools in accelerating clean energy transition right now. And when you have a good tool, you want to use it. And so we need to figure out how we can ramp up the availability of that tool. But also, we want to make sure that we think about what the use of that tool does in terms of the overall energy system's reliability, security, affordability, and environmental sustainability. And this is what this initiative is really need to focusing on, is we need to learn from the past in terms of how can we ensure that as we maximize the opportunity in terms of solar providing access to clean and affordable energy, how do we make sure we avoid the pitfalls of unsustainable, unreliable, and unsecure supply chains? And also, how can we maximize the social value of those supply chains? And it's by addressing all these issues together. As Dave mentioned, the purpose of the SEM is not to build ambition, it's to act upon ambition. And when you act upon ambition, that's where you actually realize how much of the devil is in the details. That's why that cross, platform collaboration is important. And that's where you realize there are lots of side effects to any one technology push. This is why we're so proud to have this initiative really tackle the thing holistically, being able to make sure that as we work with other initiatives who are advancing rollout of power, regulatory aspects of how you make solar more accessible, we actually are able to also ensure the side effects are going to be managed. So that's what we've achieved in this 1 year, is to be able to set up the path and to really get the right people. The work is far from being done. Today, what we hope to get into is how are we going to do this? How are we get each partner to work together and to be able to define a concrete work plan, a concrete outcome that we certainly hope that we can continue to report on, guide, and push forward as we continue to meet regularly, and really looking forward to continue these discussions, especially when we host the next Clean Energy Ministerial in Brazil in September, along with the G20, so that we can show that action is happening to support ambition setting in the political arena. So with that, great thanks to all our partners. Great thanks to everybody for moving here. And I certainly hope that we can have a strong outcome out of today's discussions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, and it's really incredible to see this platform for collaboration that that CM has created for us. And with that, I'd like to invite my colleague and friend Cor Dixon from the United States to give a very brief presentation on the policy briefs, which have been released at SEM&GOA and are available here for you to peruse as you so desire.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm Cora Dixon with the U.S. Department of Commerce. Very glad to be here today. This is my first COP. I think it goes to show that trade is becoming, a very primary theme. And here we are right on the cusp of it. So on the other hand, I realize we're running late, so I'm going to be very quick. You should have access to the report. This is what we published in July. So I'm going to give a very quick, I keep saying that, I mean it, overview of our report. But first, as co-chair of this initiative for the past year, I just want to express my gratitude, especially for our partner countries, including Australia, who co-chaired with us to get this off the ground, all of our partners. We've had a number of deliverables, even just for 1 year, including a major research report that we commissioned and our deliverable policy briefs. So we also have strong participation from several industry associations who are also here today. And again, I don't think I need to go over every single word in here. They are brief, but these are the 3 themes that we touched on: policy coordination, technology transfer, and ESG standards harmonization. And I think the key point here is we are utilizing SEM, we're utilizing COP, any multilateral forum where we could have those dialogues that accelerate our actions in this area. I know we talk a lot about the Inflation Reduction Act and the impact it has worldwide, but I also believe in these dialogues as we need to do this together. So quickly, policy coordination is the first theme. We've listed the many challenges. I think everyone here knows what these are, and they've been touched on in many ways already. And we have offered some considerations, including demand creation. I think some of these have been mentioned in the Secretary's speech. We need to focus on finance. I think everyone has seen we need to fix climate finance is one of the inspirational mottos. That should include manufacturing, finance for manufacturing, and also policy continuity. I think we will talk to the private sector today. I think there's a concern that there's policy whiplash. The Inflation Reduction Act is great. Is it here to stay? Do you believe the rhetoric on that? Second point was technology transfer. Again, this was touched on quite well in the Secretary's remarks. I think as another advantage to having so many member countries, a very good cross-section of different regions, sharing that information. We talk about intellectual property, protecting that. And finally, the ESG standards harmonization. We're going to talk today a little bit about this, about sustainability, about raising the bar for everyone, new market entrants in particular. Let's start out with the highest standards. Let's collaborate, let's share information, let's increase transparency and due diligence. And that's it. So did I do it quickly enough, Alex? All right. Now, I'm really excited for everyone who's here today. I think it's time to bring our moderator up on stage, Mate Heiss. I did it. He is the chair of the Global Solar Council, but he wears many hats. And we're really fortunate to have him here today because Solar Power Europe, of which he is also a key player, is also highly involved in our initiative. And yeah, let's just get started. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cora, for the kind words. I hope I'm audible. So indeed, my name is Mate Heiss. I wear many hats. Apart from the Global Solar Council, I also work for Solar Power Europe, which is the association that represents the entire solar value chain in Europe. We're based in Brussels, and of course, manufacturing is one of our top priorities. So I am really pleased to be here and to have the possibility to chair the following interesting panel discussion with distinguished guests. So let me introduce our panelists. So first of all, I would like to invite Kushla Munro from the Climate Change Department in Australia to join me here. Then I'm also inviting Jeffrey Marutian, who leads the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy at the Department of Energy in the United States. Dr. Hitesh Doshi, Chairman and Managing Director of the Worry Group, a leading Indian solar panel manufacturer. Welcome, Dr. Doshi. I wonder if Ms. Vaishali Sinha, co-founder of Renew and chairperson sustainability, is here. Very good to see you. Please have a seat, Ms. Sinha. Mr. David Wilhoit, President and CEO of Wacker Chemical Corporation in the United States, a leading polysilicon manufacturer for solar panels. Dr. Jürgen Reinhardt, Chairman of the Board of SMA, a leading European solar inverter manufacturer. And last but not least, Richie Merzian, International Director of the Smart Energy Council in Australia. I saw Richie. There we go.
Very quick, Mate. Some of our distinguished guests have to leave for the end. So we're going to do a photo now with the 6 panelists and the distinguished guests.
Let's do that.
And then we'll do the panel.
So are we requested to stand up?
Stand up. Do that. Yes. All right.
What are you doing?
David, why don't you come here? Yeah.
Completely lost.
I'll probably get fired for that one.
There used to be a lot of in only certain movies, people dancing on tables. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. And I guess my first question would go to Dr. Doshi from Worry Group. I would be really interested to hear your perspective on what governments can do in order to support local solar manufacturing. I mean, we heard from the representative of the Indian government what the Indian government is doing, but it would be interesting to hear your perspective as a private sector player. So, what's India doing? How are you benefiting from it? And what's your perspective? What else could be done?
Thank you very much for inviting me and giving this opportunity. Just a little bit about Wari. We are solar panel manufacturers from 2007 in India. So it's a long history for 15 years now. We have reached to the 12 gigawatt and probably in next few months I will cross 20 in India. So to answer your question, what this needs, actually the manufacturing is definitely important, not only for the supply chain, but energy security for the country, employment. And when we buy the panels, it is a 25 years energy purchase. It's not particularly that panel purchase. So Indian government has worked for last few years, started with the DCR content where the government was supporting financially they put that the panel should be made in India or cells should be made in India. And that has moved now up to the level of PLI and now the ALMM. So ALMM is also restricting the quality, whatever we had issue of the dumping of the quality issues and other things. So government is one side is working on pushing the production and pulling the demands with the various, I will say, the facilities by giving the PLIs and other things together. So overall, government is doing well. What could have been done more? Uh, of course, there is a huge investments on the polysilicon, wafer, and ingot. And the ore capacity is the challenge we are facing at this moment across the globe for the production. So how and how fast we do it, these are the two things I think can be done better on the polysilicon side, where the government comes up and helps the private entrepreneurs or government itself comes up with the polysilicon plant. And that will not give only the support to the local manufacturers, but globally, it will be the second source of the availability. This is what I would like to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Doshi. And let me come back directly to you with a follow-up question, because you mentioned the PLI scheme and also the ALMM, the approved list of manufacturers, but there is a third, let's say, measure that I'm aware of in India, the basic customs duty, a trade defense measure in a way. What's your perspective on that?
Basic custom duty is a good, but as you know that the government of India has a lot of FTAs has been signed already. And there are the possibilities which is happening. We are seeing the surge in import for last 6 months from the FTA countries. So it is definitely a good tool, but together with that, FTA is the challenge.
Okay, thank you very much. So with my next question, I would like to turn to Jürgen from SMA, because Jürgen, you're leading one of the world's leading inverter manufacturer companies. So first of all, I'd like to ask you to tell us a bit about inverters and how inverter manufacturing works and how it differs from cell manufacturing. I'll let you sort out the cable over there, because quite often when we talk about solar manufacturing, we tend to focus a little bit too much, in my opinion, on solar panels. But inverters are the brains of the system, right? So can you tell us a bit about that, and also about your experience with building up manufacturing, ramping up manufacturing? How is it like in Europe?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for the possibility to speak here. Yes, indeed. We've been in the solar industry for over 40 years, and actually we founded the inverter to be able to connect the different modules together to a string, and thereby actually founded the string technology and make PV viable in the 80s. Today we are just increasing from 20 gigawatt to 40 gigawatt our manufacturing capacity, and yes, indeed, because of the fact that one has the intelligence in the microprocessors in the inverter, you have the possibility to do all the sector coupling, as we do also nowadays. One of the biggest manufacturers of power to gas rectifiers and inverters for fuel cells, and also electric vehicle charging, as well as energy management. You need the computing power of the inverter to put together the sectors. We've over the years gone into different countries. For example, started production in South Africa in 2011, started in Canada, mainly driven by local content requests. Then also had a production in China, Poland, and actually have, during the solar coaster years, which have been from 2010 to 2020 rather heavily, retreated to only have production in Germany, where we are doubling now from 20 to 40 gigawatt. Are now deciding to go back into the USA. I forgot that we were 10 years in the USA also. And why is it so difficult to have manufacture at many different places? The first thing is most of these components come from single companies, either mainly still today in the USA or Europe, meaning the electrolytic capacitors, the fans, the IGBTs, so the semiconductor modules, etc. And you would buy those and shift them into different countries and then do the final manufacturing. The final manufacturing actually does not involve so many people. It's with an inverter for 5 gigawatt plant factory, you need 60 people, not more actually. But it's a very important step actually to decisively decide on the quality. And that's why it is very important to have scale. And that's why we are always against trade barriers. We are very much in favor of actually having the possibility to, yes, produce wherever it's possible and needed, but at the same time be free for any company in any country to be active in the different countries. Now, having said that, we will make a decision this week to actually move into the USA because we think the IRA is a long-term setup. Until 32 we can calculate, and then we can of course be there in a position to calculate of what will this take, what is the amount of money we need to put in, but what is also the payback on that. And we are actually in big discussions also with the Australian government because we have roughly 60% of the large-scale applications with our inverters, having very detailed talks always with AEMO, etc. But the same is there, of course. Until now, it's more feasible to actually have the production either in Germany or in a hub, and then serve the entire Southeast Asia and Australian region out of cost reasons and keeping a very high quality and sustainability, which I think is extremely important. Not only looking at the price, but looking at cybersecurity, because each inverter can be stopped. And if you stop them all at the same time, then you don't have any net left. Sustainability in terms of longevity of the components, so really have designed for 20-25 years lifetime, and thereby have a resilience of the supply chain, making sure that you have both cybersecurity and very sustainable supply chains and designed for long lifetime. So that is what we are very concerned about. And in the end, if an inverter lasts for 7 years or 8 years, it's not sustainable. It doesn't help. You can just as well produce the electrical energy from other sources.
Thanks a lot, Jürgen, for these explanations and also for introducing the topic of sustainability. I would like to come back to you right away with a sustainability-related question. So could you tell us a bit more about the difference between sustainability for inverters and sustainability for panels, and what do you as SMA do in order to ensure a high level of ESG compliance when it comes to your products?
Yeah, so there is a difference. Of course, on the model side, my colleagues can say much more here. But we have in each inverter, we have about over 1,000 components, and each of these components have normally we track down to tier 6, so the sub suppliers, and we are focusing a lot with EcoVadis, CDP ratings, etc., to make sure that we know all these chains and know that we do not have any child labor, etc., in our supply chain. And that is doable only with a great effort, especially if you remember that it's even on a normal inverter up to 1,500 components. And then we make sure of two things, as I said from the beginning. The one is really to design with an extra margin so that you can have a long lifetime. And all of these components deteriorate, so you need to have the extra design for lifetime in order to achieve the 20 years in the sun of the inverters. While at the same time, of course, make sure that the supply chain is really known and you know all of your sub suppliers in that chain. And the third one, as I said, which is different to modules, is really cybersecurity, because if you look at Germany, you have many days today where you have the whole energy supply from solar, 100% from solar, especially on Sundays. But even in the week, it will be 80% quite often on a summer day. And meaning, even if it's only 40%, you can switch off the inverters of one manufacturers, which you can do from the manufacturing side, and you will definitely have a blackout for many, many hours. And that is why I think cybersecurity is such an important issue, and to be also knowing which inverter manufacturers you have in the system, are they trustable? So apart from the price, which is of course a very important point, and each project needs to pay itself, these non-price issues of cybersecurity, long lifetime, and general supply chain sustainability is extremely important, I think.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. So let me now turn to the government representatives. So Jeffrey and Kushla, I wanted to ask you about sustainability requirements in your countries. So we've heard about the IRA, of course, very important support instrument to support local manufacturing on the demand side. But I would be keen to hear about what sustainability requirements plans there are in the US. We know about the UFLPA, the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, that addresses one slice of sustainability of ESG, namely forced labor in one particular region. But what other plans or do you have for that?
Great. Well, first of all, let me say how great it is to be here as a part of this conversation. This is in order to move forward in the way that we all know we need to, it really does require a level of collaboration that I think is evidenced by the folks who are participating here. It also requires transparency, which is largely what our laws in the United States are designed to facilitate. And certainly the work that we do at the Department of Energy is consistent with that. And so, as we move forward to expand the work that we're doing to deploy renewable technologies, we do so in a way that that honors the integrity of our laws and of our values as a country. So one of the things that I think is important to just continue to note is that what we do is largely consistent with what those laws are, and so as that on a certain level guarantees some level of certainty. I think much of what we do is codified in the tax code in our country, and that is largely something that it provides a level of certainty. So I think as we move forward, we do so knowing that we will continue to work with our partners in private industry to adapt to whatever changes there are on the U.S. front, but also globally as well.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I apologize, Kushla. I was asked to take Vaishali forward because you will have to leave on, I understand, in 5 to 10 minutes time. So I would like to come back to you, Kushla, in a few minutes. But so Vaishali, you represent Renew. And I understand that you are also heading Renew's sustainability activities. And it would be interesting to know from your point of view, what are the priorities for the solar sector, for solar manufacturing in terms of ESG compliance? What would you like to see from governments? And what do you do as a company? And what do you think industry needs to do as industry initiatives in order to address ESG compliance?
Sure, thank you. And thank you for this brilliant session and the kind of people we have around. And I do echo that it requires partners to do what we need to do and to scale the way we need to, with tripling of our targets and goals for renewables. It's also great that today is the first trade day here at the COP. It was great to see Health Day. So it's nice to see the agility which the COP brings to the table and gives all of us direction when the leaders get back to India, and also nimbleness on their part to listen to our issues when we have them, to solve for the sector to scale up. As far as ESG and sustainability is concerned, intuitively, let me just tell you, when 5 years ago I started looking at ESG and sustainability as an area we need to build in our company, which is just about 10 years old, everybody was like, oh, you're in the ESG space. What do you need to do? And why do you need to have such a strong focus? But let me tell you 3 or 4 things which are very critical in the sector. We just set up, unlike Wari, where that's the core business model. For us, it was actually an outcome of what we are seeing, the concentration in China of a lot of the downstream products. And for the China Plus One strategy and the PLI incentives which the government offered, we set up our manufacturing facilities. We have about a 4 gigawatt plant, again, not as large as the amount of manufacturing you do, but pretty significant for us. And we kind of set it up in a record period of time, providing a lot of employment to people, very particular about who we employ. But most importantly, we also want to make sure that we get the right LEED certification. Talking about a very small micro issue, it was quite a task in the organization to move people to prioritize that, though we were manufacturing panels, to put up our own panels within a certain time was quite a challenge to get the right LEED certification, which then enables us to do a lot more on the sustainability front. So we are doing that. We conduct a very stringent supply chain assessment. We have a policy for that. So that enables the entire company to focus on priorities on how we're going to work with our supply chain, how we are going to develop it. And of course, we're also working on a lot on industry academia partnership, because we really need to look at recycling of these panels. We need to start thinking ahead. So we've already commissioned a lot of studies so that we can gear ourselves. It's quite a complex process to ensure that we can recycle these panels in a few years, which are coming up. So of course, how we employ women, the diversity and the in the facilities, how we build up these facilities, and also I think the other last point I would say, more than I think the regulators asking us to do stuff around ESG and sustainability, it's our investors and our customers who are really driving this. And so, therefore, it's important for us to get good sort of certifications for these products so that, after putting all the effort, we can even sell them in a way which is appreciated for the kind of work we are doing and the kind of impact we are having on the environment, positive impact.
Thank you very much, Vaishali. So you mentioned your clients and your investors. Do you see upcoming, say, sustainability or ESG requirements, government-led requirements or legislation in India? India is your main jurisdiction, I understand. Because just as an FYI for everyone, in Europe, for example, there are some very important upcoming laws, such as the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive and also a forced labor ban regulation that companies will have to comply with in a couple of years' time. And as Solar Power Europe, we are dedicating, together with our members, we are dedicating a lot of resources and effort to prepare for compliance for these legislation. And it would be interesting to hear India's experience with this.
No, absolutely. So, I do believe, based on the way we do business, we always start a little bit ahead and we anticipate regulations. So, BRSR is on its way. And I think a lot of the listed companies have been asked to prepare themselves to report for ESG and sustainability related matters. So, it's there, it's coming up, and we do expect. India is never behind as far as all of these things are concerned. So there is, but for companies like us, we are listed on NASDAQ. What we do from the lens of a US market and European market, because a lot of our clients and customers are there, also matters. So the world is coming together, and it doesn't matter what you're doing in your own country. You really have to comply from across multiple geographies. But to answer your question, yes, I've participated in a lot of discussions where we are formulating the requirements for listed companies as far as ESG and sustainability is concerned.
Thank you very much. All right, Kushla, I would like to come back to you and hear a... No problem. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you. So Kushla, allow me to come back to you, and we would be very eager to hear about Australia's experience, in particular in terms of government incentives for manufacturers, but also sustainability requirements.
Thank you. Just to begin, though, I'll just send my thanks to Cora because one, I know, particularly with Peter and my team, you drove this work, and why it's part of the SEM. It is about countries sometimes being able to step up and individuals. So thank you. And I was looking at the policy brief, and I was just actually thinking and reflecting on that point of all of the things that you have to think about. So Australia doesn't, to any large extent, currently manufacture solar panels. So it's a really significant question, though, and I'm sure Richie Mezian from the Smart Energy Council will have more to say about this, in terms of Australia's ambition to be a renewable energy superpower and just the scaling up. So, you can look at different estimates in terms of what we have to do, but it's more than tripling. It's probably like 9, and then you go in multiples. So what that starts to do is change the whole calculation in terms of what's the scale that you're looking at, what's the economics, and also the security and that concentration of supply is so critical. But for Australia, I think we've always, we're a big trading country. So we don't just look in, we look out as well. And so that's that question actually along the supply chains. What's that part where we would add the most value? So I really am struck by your comments about the solar coaster, but where and how do you do that? And where will it make most sense? So there's a lot of work currently going on across the Australian government with industry to really think through what would make sense for a country like Australia. But one of the other things that we've been doing, and just an example of this, is through the Quad. So that's, for those who don't know, that's a leadership group with the US, Japan, India, and Australia. And so I lead the clean energy innovation pillar on that. And one of the things that we agreed to with our country colleagues were, the primacy of ESG. And as I understand, that was pretty hard fought with our Indian colleagues because there's always that concern that it's put up there as a barrier rather than a facilitator in terms of what has to happen through trade in particular. That being said, clean energy supply chains and how you think about the diversification of that, which I do think is absolutely critical. We're talking about solar, but it's right through all the clean energy supply chains. So sort of, I haven't quite answered your question, but the point being in terms of what you do and how you do it, kind of, it matters where you are, what's your comparative advantages, but probably also more importantly, how you're working with industry in other countries.
Thank you very much, Kushla. And I was told I'm too tall, so I'm going to be leaning closer to the mic. And I was seeing Richie nodding, and you're also from Australia, Richie, representing the leading renewable energy association, the Smart Energy Council in Australia. So I would like to hand the word to you and hear about your priorities in terms of manufacturing, in terms of Australia becoming a main exporter of critical raw materials in the renewable energy sector. So what's your perspective on that? What are your priorities?
Yeah, thank you, Mate. Just by way of background, the Smart Energy Council is a renewable energy industry group, but it started out really as a solar society. So the pioneers who developed what is now the modern solar panel that sits behind 90% of our modules all came from Australian technology and technologists who then set up what is now our industry group. And really, the enthusiasm for solar in Australia has never waned. About 10% of the electricity generated comes from solar PV. About 1 in 3 homes has the solar panels on their roofs. So it's about 11 gigawatts. We'll need to double that if we're going to hit our target in terms of solar PV. So there is sufficient demand, but only 1% of that is manufactured in Australia. But we're hoping to see that change. And I think just last month, the Australian Prime Minister launched a new factory from one of our members, SunDrive, which is hoping to develop a new version of a panel to meet some of that local demand. But we know that we're not going to be able to meet the demands, or we're not going to have the demand that, say, India will have of 100 gigawatts per annum, as we heard earlier today. So the question is, where in that process can we best lend value? Because we do want to diversify our supply. We do want to play a role in building the climate solutions of the future. And so we have numerous different examples that we're all looking at, but they're all at that pilot stage. I think what Kushla was saying is really useful, which is who are we going to partner with to make that happen? Because I think partnerships are going to be key here. And then to the extent that we can actually harmonize our standards, to the extent that we can have, similar accreditation processes, that will ease it, because our market will never be a massive demandeur of solar panels, but we can actually provide value along the pathway. And so those are really the questions we're asking, and it's really useful having these forums to have those questions discussed.
Thank you very much, Richie. And maybe at here, let me just insert a comment on behalf of Solar Power Europe. We are actually working on a solar-specific sustainability assurance program, the Solar Stewardship Initiative. You can learn more about it at solarstewardshipinitiative.org. It is really bringing together over 60 companies, both on the demand side and the supply side, working together on ESG compliance, especially in light of the upcoming European sustainability legislation. And we're really proud of this initiative. Because we think this this can really deliver what the solar sector needs to deliver in order to maintain our reputation and ensure vis-a-vis our stakeholders that we do take sustainability and ESG compliance very seriously. But let me turn back to the panel and David Wilhoit from Wacker USA. So you are positioned in the upper part of the solar panel cell silicon supply chain. And when we talk about ESG compliance and sustainability compliance, of course, the panel manufacturers are coming to you asking for your help in order to be able to comply with those things. And traceability is a key word here. So, what are your lessons learned from the United States, especially in light of the UFLPA compliance with that legislation, and how do you ensure that your company complies with these various ESG requirements?
Thank you for the question. And I'd like to thank Cora for the invitation. It's a unique opportunity to be part of this important discussion. We talk a lot about chips and modules and wafers. Going further up the stream, Wacker has been producing polysilicon since 1959. We have manufacturing in Germany as well as in the US, in Tennessee. Half of the world's semiconductor chips are made out of Wacker polysilicon, which is an enormous figure, and it's a responsibility. But also polysilicon goes into the solar industry, as you mentioned. We are trying to live up to the challenge put forth by the US president of 65 gigawatts of domestically supplied throughout the entire supply chain. And it's a big challenge. And so we understand that there'll be some transition, but we are working through the IRA, which is a wonderful initiative, but there is some gaps. If you talk about specifically your question on the how to work with CBP, the Customs and Border Patrol, the guidelines aren't completely specific right now. You know, the overall scope as well as the definitions, but how the guideline works, we work very closely to get the amount of clarity throughout the entire supply chain. Wacker being EcoVadis Platinum and initial founder of that group, we take social responsibility very strongly. And so as part of that, we actually are, for the polysilicon supply chain, we source our silicon metal outside of the concerned area. And so that allows us very clear distinction, but still the systemic enforcement isn't clear right now in the US. Due it to amount of workforce in detaining material. And if we have enough time, we can give that full traceability. So working with companies like Wacker, or there's other Western polysilicon suppliers, that's a little bit easier. But there's still some opportunities for advancement. When we talk about one thing about polysilicon for the solar industry, solar obviously it has the climate focus, but if you utilize polysilicon like Wacker that utilizes silicon metal from a renewable carbon source, utilizing through renewable charcoal, as well as how the energy is sourced, not through coal, but through clean energy. Like we have a facility in Norway that is all on hydro. It's even beyond just solar. It's how is your polysilicon supporting the initiative? So thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And I believe we still have maybe 5, 6, or 7 minutes left from the panel discussion. I hope Cora can nod if this is the case. Do we still have a few minutes? Because if yes, then I would. Thank you very much, Kushla. Then we will thank you. But I would like to ask one brief question to each panelist, and namely because one of the objectives of the Transforming Solar Supply Chains workstream is to bring together international players and encourage international cooperation, joint ventures, encourage companies to invest in manufacturing outside of their own home jurisdictions. So to the companies, what do you need? What kind of incentives do you need from your governments or from other governments to do so? So, for example, for Waaree to invest outside of India for manufacturing, for Wacker the same to invest outside of US or Germany, same for SMA, and to Jeffrey. whether this is, this type of diversification is part of any U.S. American initiative. And also, Richie, what are you doing together with your members in order to encourage these types of joint ventures? And maybe we can start with Jeffrey.
Sure, absolutely. Well, yes is the answer to your question. In this administration in the United States, we are deploying a whole of government approach, which means that agencies like the one that Cora represents, Department of Commerce, Department of Energy, along with several others, are working together. That requires both domestic collaboration, but also international collaboration, because we know that not one country is going to get to where we need to go collectively. Is what the answer is, where the answer really lies. So yes, absolutely. So I'm certainly very encouraged by the level of collaboration that we see here at COP, and in particular in this space. I think we've made so much progress in the solar space in particular because of that international collaboration.
Thank you, Hitesh.
Thank you. I think for any manufacturer, the important is the assurance of the local market. And whatever the cost structure comes in that region or country, how that cost structure is covered, at least his production he can sell. I think that is the most important.
Thank you, David.
Regarding Wacker, looking at a polysilicon facility at the scale would cost $4 to $5 billion. And so for us, utilizing the infrastructure that we have both in Europe and in the US would make more sense. When you talk about collaboration, it's working with customers downstream from us, how we can incentivize them having a close supplier in the US or in the European region.
Thank you, Jürgen.
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, I think what is really important for us is planability. So knowing that we can rely on that. So I just mentioned Canada or South Africa as an example where we went in and we needed to go out afterwards because the market just did not come really. And that's really expensive and you don't want to do that, even if we don't have the same CapEx cost at the beginning. So planability is good. Like I mentioned with the IRA, until 32, you have a frame of time where you can calculate and you can hopefully then have a clear picture on your return of invest there. So that's very important. And we would like to go to any country where the demand side is sufficiently big, as well as the planability on that one can get a business case positively out of that. What we do otherwise is that we, and I think that's very important, that one has a lot of interaction on education. So we have, for example, Solar Academy, as we call it, here in Jordania, in Jordan, in Australia, in South Africa, and of course in the USA, where we have 400 people. So it's something where we like to be always very, very close to the country and really put a lot of effort into education. And in India, for example, we just started a very interesting scientific hub in Bangalore, where we want to make sure we have the best support for the India and the Southeast Asia region in terms of very knowledgeable people getting in them and helping the whole region develop solar. And that's what I think is important as well, is to really put a lot of emphasis on the education. And it's not only on our products, it's about the solar market and how to deploy it and when it makes sense and make the calculations, grid forming, grid stability, and all these things that really become much more important.
Thank you, Richie.
The first is familiarity. So it's really getting our members to actually see what can happen. So even just delegations, taking them to sites, to potential, and then from there it's certainty in terms of the demand, certainty in terms of the investment, whether they're subsidies or support in the form of the IRA or the Green Industrial Deal, and then it goes both ways. I think Kushla from the Australian government was talking about how Australia is yet to come up with its own response to the Inflation Reduction Act or the Green Industrial Deal. So there's still uncertainty at home as well. So what we also need to see is we also need to see the Australian government decide exactly how they best want to support the local industry, where it best connects into the international, and that will help our members then figure out how they best fit into the international space too.
Thank you, Richie. And so just to conclude this round of comments, to say from Solar Per Europe side and the European perspective, So while the top priority in the European Union, of course, remains to reshore and rebuild local domestic manufacturing within Europe, Europe is also very much interested in exploring manufacturing cooperation and supply chain cooperation with countries outside of Europe, including Australia, India, United States, of course. As Solar Europe, we are exploring these opportunities as well. So, for example, we have an ongoing cooperation with the National Solar Energy Federation of India, exploring supply chain cooperation options between the EU and India. And also, as a final remark, the European Union has just recently launched a big initiative, infrastructure initiative, the Global Gateway Initiative, which is aiming to mobilize about 300 billion euros for investments in infrastructure projects outside of Europe to help Europe's partner countries, third countries, to invest in things like supply chains and local manufacturing. And this initiative definitely brings an opportunity for such cooperations in countries like India, for example. So we are actively looking at these types of possibilities. So with this, I would like to invite the participants to join me in thanking our distinguished panelists. And I will hand it over to back to Cora. Thank you.
Thank you, Mate. I really appreciate the work you've done today to moderate this discussion, this distinguished group of panelists from so many different countries represented here and representing the countries that are in our initiative. It has fallen upon me to make closing remarks, but I'm just so grateful to have had this opportunity to invite the panelists here at COP28, where we talk about the climate crisis, we talk about action, collective action, we talk about accelerating the clean energy transition, and let's not forget, let's accelerate the manufacturing for the clean energy transition. Let's not forget that. Let's not take it for granted. And I know that there's been a lot of attention on the United States for the Inflation Reduction Act, but through the past year as co-chair of this initiative, I have been very grateful to have many of these conversations about what we can do together. And I hope that this is another launching point. So now that we've had everyone in the room, we have the momentum, we're talking about what to do next, facing the challenges squarely. And I look forward to the next opportunity to have additional engagement on this issue. So with that, I thank the panelists for being here. Thank you again. And enjoy the rest of your time at COP28. And I believe we have some gifts of appreciation of some kind from ISA. I think we have a bag for everybody.
Well, thank you. Well, and on that, thank you to ISA for putting this on. This has been a really useful and fruitful conversation. And I think a great way to take the tripling renewable goal and actually put it into a more practical space. So thank you.
Yeah. We're very grateful to ISA for hosting. Thank you, everyone, again. And I think this concludes our program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that you. Yeah, sorry, our minister. Very important.
Good. Appreciate it.
So that was sort of lightning round. No, I appreciate you could be here and your perspective is really valuable. I mean, you know, I don't be saying here, sure, I actually and then you expand it.